Bonjour à toutes et à tous et bienvenue sur Blabla Katie. My name is Katie and today we're going to blah blah about 10 things to pack for an overnight flight to France. So likely this video is going to be able to apply to anybody taking an overnight flight, but since I specifically will be going to France, fingers crossed, in a month, this is specific to what I will be bringing on the flight from the US to La France. I will be doing more videos specifically on how to pack all of these things and also what you should be bringing to France specifically, so not just for the flight, so make sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss those, and let's get into it. If you're interested in getting any of the specific items that I'll be talking about in this video, I will put the relevant links to them in the description box below. And if you buy using one of those links, I will get a small commission at no cost to you, so you're not obligated to use these links. But if you're thinking about buying one of these items, I would very much appreciate if you used my link. So the first mini group of items has to do with logistics. Obviously, you're going to want to bring your passport. You're not going to be able to get on the flight without your passport. And if you're going to be staying in France for longer than 90 days, then you need to make sure you have the specific visa in it. You'll also want to make sure that you have photocopies of that first page of your passport with your photo on it. And you want to make sure that you have these photocopies in different places, so not right with your passport. So for example, if you have your passport in your personal item, you can maybe have a photocopy in there as well, another photocopy in your suitcase, and a third photocopy in your carry-on. The reason why is because if for some reason you lose your passport or it gets stolen, you'll have the photocopy to be able to bring to the embassy or whatever process it is to get a replacement passport. And this will be much easier if you already have the photocopy of it. So that's why you want to have multiple copies of this and to have them in different places. You'll also want to make sure that you have your information of where you're going to be staying once you land in France. And I always like to have a hard copy printed out just in case something goes wrong with my phone, but you can also just screenshot it on your phone as long as you have it somewhere. So if you're going to be staying in a hostel or at an Airbnb, make sure you have the confirmation printed out with the address. If you're going to be staying with a friend or if you're going to be couch surfing, make sure you have some confirmation of what the address is, because normally you will be asked the address for where you're staying at customs. Before you can officially enter France, you have to go through a process in which they will probably ask you where you will be staying. So it's just nice to have that on hand. And finally, under the category of logistics, you want to make sure that you have what's called an adapter. So outlets in Europe are going to be different from the outlets in the United States. In the US, you have the two prongs that are kind of like this, they're more rectangular, whereas in Europe, they're a little more circular. So instead of having to buy completely new wires, what you can do instead is just get an adapter like this, so it's not connected to anything. And then you can see here that an American plug would actually be able to fit into that, and then you could put it into the wall. You do want to be careful with this because it's not just the shapes of the plugs that are different and the shapes of the sockets, it's also the voltage that's being used. So in the United States, the voltage is 110, whereas in Europe, it's normally 220. And because of this difference, you want to make sure that whatever you're plugging into the adapter can handle 220. And this information can be found on the actual cube itself. This is just an iPhone charger. So if you look here, it says under the model number and where it's made, it says input 100 to 240V. So since that is within the range of 220, which is what it is in Europe, this means that it's totally safe to just plug this into an adapter and then to plug it into the wall. This will be super handy if, for example, you're waiting in the airport for a little bit and you want to charge your phone. You'll definitely want to make sure that you have an adapter. And I do want to say that I have been on flights before where they do have a little socket for a USB so you can actually charge your phone in flight, but I don't think that that's guaranteed, so this is good to have if you need to charge your phone as soon as you get off the flight into the airport. So moving into the category of money, there are two things that I will be bringing on the overnight flight that I think are pretty important. The first is a money belt, and this is what it looks like. There are a ton of different money belts that you can get. This one just wraps around your waist. I mean, it's small enough where it can go under your clothes, and you'll see you can kind of open it here and stretch it a bit, and that's where you can put your money, maybe a card or two. I don't know if my passport would fit in here, but this is really good to have because you should be traveling with euros so that you have the local currency by the time you land in France. And if you're nervous about putting that into your personal item or in your pocket, you can put it in a money belt and conceal that. It will be kind of awkward if you have to lift your shirt up to go into it to take money out to buy something at the airport. So I recommend maybe having like 10 euros in your pocket and then put the rest in a money belt or somewhere else that is concealed. And the second thing under money is actually this little wallet, and it's called an RFID blocking wallet. Pretty much there are devices that people have now where they can electronically steal your credit card information, and I guess it's just a device that people have that if they walk in close enough proximity to you and your card isn't protected, it's not in an RFID blocking wallet or container, then they can just take that information from you without you knowing and without actually physically having the credit card. So I bought this RFID blocking wallet, and if you open it up, it's got a bunch of different containers for the credit cards. I do not have this many credit cards, but it's gonna get the job done. So now moving into the category of hygiene. When you go on a flight, you're allowed to bring a little transparent bag that has toiletries and things like that in it in your carry-on. So this is something you can actually have with you on the plane. So usually what I do before I get on the plane, I'll make sure to brush my teeth. And then when I wake up in the morning, I cannot use the bathroom on the plane. I really can't do it. If you can, go for it. But I normally then brush my teeth also in the morning when we get into the airport and before I get to customs. So if you also want to make sure that you can brush your teeth both at night and in the morning, make sure that in your toiletries you have a little travel size thing of toothpaste. And I would also say to make sure that you have hand sani. This is something where, I mean, especially in the era of COVID, it's apparent as to why we all need hand sani. You never know when you're going to be able to wash your hands. You never know how many people have touched the things that you've touched. And it can get really, really gross if you think about it for too long. So just make sure you have some hand sani in that travel bag as well. The next group of things I want to talk about have to do with food and water, and that is essentially what it is. So there's this misconception that you can't have your own water bottle, or that it at least can't be filled with water going into an airport. And while you definitely want to have an empty water bottle when you're going through security, you're not allowed to have liquid in that water bottle. Once you're walking to your gate and you're past the security checkpoint, you can actually fill it up at a water fountain, and you can bring your own water onto the plane, and then you don't have to buy very much overpriced water bottles in the airport. So what I ended up getting is actually called a Q water bottle. And it's spelled Q-U-E, so I just keep thinking Q, but it is pronounced Q. So this is a collapsible water bottle. This is how small it can go, but it can also go up to here. I believe it is 16 fluid ounces. This is really handy because once I get into the airport and there's no water in this, because again, you can't have water in your water bottle when you go through security, I'm going to have it be this small, and that way it's not going to take up that much space. I'm not going to have to worry about it falling out or, I don't know, touching anything. But then once I get past security and I go to fill it up, I can turn it into a much larger water bottle to make sure that I have enough water for the flight. On the flight, you will probably be able to get a cup of water maybe once or twice, but I really like having my own water bottle because then I don't have to wait for flight attendants to come around with those puny little cups. This is the normal top that you can get with the Q water bottle, where it's kind of just flat on top. But I also ended up buying another top that has this sort of like ring thing on it, so that way I can clip it to my backpack. And that's just another way to make sure that I A, won't lose it, and B, it won't take up space because it can just be on the exterior of whatever bag I decide to put it on. So of course, along with food and water, we gotta talk about the food. There's also a misconception that you can't bring food into the airport or on the plane, which you totally can. So I will say first, you'll want to look into your air carrier, so look at their website, and you'll want to look at maybe the TSA website to see if you're not allowed to bring certain foods into the country that you're going to. But I've always brought snacks in the past, normally granola bars, so that way if I wake up in the morning and I'm hungry and the breakfast isn't coming around yet, I can snack on something. But yeah, as long as your air carrier has no restrictions, you should be able to bring your own snacks onto the plane. So the last category that I want to talk about is, in my opinion, the most important one, and it has to do with sleep. I am one of the lightest sleepers in the world, and trying to sleep on an airplane in the past has proven to be difficult for me. So I have quite a few things that I do want to tell you about that I think you should bring on an overnight flight if you're worried about getting enough shut-eye. And I do think it's super important to get as much sleep as you can on the flight, because not only will this hopefully help minimize your jet lag once you land in France, but you also want to be as awake as possible and not really groggy, because there are kind of a lot of things you have to do once you land. You have to go through customs, you have to find a way to get to wherever it is that you're going, you need to make sure that you have all of your bags with you. There's just a lot of things to keep track of. So getting enough sleep and getting quality sleep is, in my opinion, one of the most important things of an overnight flight. So first, I think that everybody should invest in some sort of neck support. In the past, I've always just used the sort of foam pillows that go around and it kind of looks like a horseshoe shape, and those are fine. But for me, I've noticed that they'll kind of move around a lot when I'm sleeping, or whatever side I'm on will get deflated super quickly and I won't have, again, enough support. So this time around, I've actually invested in a pillow called Comfo Array. Again, I'll just put this in the description box. But it's compact enough to fit into its own little bag, and I love this because in the past, another thing that I hate about the little horseshoe pillows is that to not take up space, I would kind of just clip it to the outside of my carry-on, but then it inevitably would be touching all of the things around it. So I would be resting my head on the same pillow that touched maybe an airport seat and the car seat and just a bunch of things that I don't want my head touching. So I like that it can fit in a bag that can then clip onto my carry-on. And then when you take it out, this is what it looks like. On the inside, you can see it says chin, so you know where to put it, but this is what it looks like on. me show you. So there are two different sides, or I guess two different heights to the sides, but I'll talk about that in a second. Here, I haven't taken this off yet, but there's Velcro underneath this, so you'll just Velcro it as tight as you want it to go. And this way, so you can see this side is a little shorter than the other, and I really think it's up to preference, but if you want a little more support, you go here, a little less support and a little more bend, then you go here. That probably will also depend on the size of your neck and your face. But for me, I really like that this is something that completely wraps around. I know it kind of just looks like a neck brace, but I find it to be really comfortable. And this way I know that it's not going to be moving while I'm sleeping. So that is the first thing I would recommend for getting a good night's sleep. And to go along with your neck support, definitely also want to get an eye mask. And I'm actually waiting for my new eye masks to come in, but this is the old one that I still use every night. And what I think is really important in trying to find in an eye mask is to make sure that it blocks out as much light as possible. And that on the inside, so this is obviously very old, this isn't supposed to be separated, but on the inside, you want to make sure that it has kind of sunken sockets for your eyes so that the fabric isn't pushing against your eyelids while you're trying to sleep. So along with the eye mask, I'm going to count earplugs to be a part of that. So I actually bought a 50 pack. Well, actually it's a 50 pair pack, which means that there are 100 earplugs in here, and they are Max Ultra Soft Foam earplugs. So I actually already took a pair out and I've been wearing them for like the past week or so, and they block out so much sound. It's not like they're going to block out everything, but it becomes very, very muffled. And I've noticed that my sleep quality, even just in bed, has really gotten a lot better. So I'm excited to use these on the plane as well. If you don't want to wear earplugs and the way that you want to fall asleep is by listening to music or by watching a movie, then obviously you're going to want to have headphones. Please do not be the person that does not bring headphones, because I've had quite a few stories of sitting next to someone who literally will just take their phone and put it up to their ear, and I'm just sitting there like, headphones, headphones. Something else that I definitely use to help me sleep on the flight is Dramamine, and I don't have this yet. I'm gonna get it from the pharmacy, but I get like a little capsule of regular drowsy Dramamine, and this normally knocks me out. You do want to be careful about deciding when to take the Dramamine. You always want to take it after having eaten something. Do not take it on an empty stomach, and you want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to be able to kind of snap out of the Dramamine stupor. So at whatever time that I'm landing in France, I'll want to make sure that I'm taking the Dramamine no later than 8 hours before my arrival time, because again, when I wake up, I don't want to be groggy. I want to be able to understand everything that's going on and to be able to keep track of all of my things. So definitely be careful with the Dramamine. And the last thing, which by this point, I've realized this is way more than 10 things to bring on the flight, but whatever. The last thing that you want to bring on this overnight flight to France are warm clothes. So normally on the overnight flights that I've been on to France, the plane gets very cold. So I'll make sure that I have my winter coat. Sometimes I'll wear plush line leggings under jeans and then maybe fuzzy socks with my heavy shoes. And not only will this make sure that you are warm on the plane, but this is also a really good hack as well for the weight in your suitcase. Since your checked baggage can only be so heavy, it's helpful to wear the heaviest items that you have on the plane, and that'll free up some space and weight in your suitcase. So those are my slightly more than 10 things to bring on an overnight flight to France. If there's anything else you would add to the list, please put it in the comments down below. This might help other people out. If you got any value out of this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time. À la prochaine!